Hello, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. And for round number 12, we've got Sajgalik, Huang, and Yam. They are at 8-2-1, Paul, facing down Wilson, Rizzi, and Shenhar at 8-3. We've been starting with the Legacy table, which in this case is a Teamer Delver Mirror. We're going to mix it up a little bit and start with Modern this time, and that is going to be Huang playing Humans up against Mattia Rizzi on blue-white control. So very aggressive, disruptive deck versus a pure control deck. Let's head on down. It's time for round number 12 here from Pro Tour 25th Anniversary.
Oh, it's finally Helix! Oh my God!
Oh, easy game!
He didn't block and that was it!
What have you drawn? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Huey Jensen is your world champion.
Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon, and it's time for round 12 action. We're going to be kicking things off in our middle table. This is Modern. We've got Huang. He's playing Humans, one of the best decks in Modern, and a deck that if you are planning on playing a lot of Modern, you're going to want to be very well aware of its capabilities. On the other side of the table, it's Mattia Rizzi, and he's on blue-white control. So, Paul, we have a very classic style matchup, aggro versus control, though the Humans deck really does throw in a curveball by being quite good against control decks for a few reasons. One of them is right off the bat here in Ether Vial.
Yeah, there's multiple cards that kind of give control decks fits. You know, the control decks do generally play a good amount of counter magic. You know, you have Mana Leak, Remand, stuff like that. And, you know, the Humans deck not only plays 4 copies of Ether Vial, it also has 4 copies of Cavern of Souls. So it really negates counter magic. But Mattia Rizzi has actually made adjustments. He really doesn't play a whole lot of counter magic. We see a Logic Knot, a couple of negates, and 4 copies of Cryptic. But of course, Cryptic Command, there are many more modes that you can actually use. You know, this list is actually very, very interesting. This is just straight old school blue-white control. It's got 4 Ancestral Vision, 4 Cryptic Command, 4 Celestial Colonnade, and that's how you're going to win.
Okay, and the other thing that I think about when I see the Humans deck that can really punish it are sweepers, board sweepers. And it looks like Mattia has 3 Terminus and a Wrath of God in there as well.
Yeah, he's got 3 Terminus of Wrath, and also on top of that, a Supreme Verdict. So the reason why that there is a mixture of the different sweeper effects, you know, one might ask, is Wrath better than Supreme Verdict? It's because of the existence of the Humans deck. The Humans deck plays Meddling Mage, and Humans is one of the most popular decks in Modern. As a result, if you have multiple removal spells that effectively do the same thing, it's better to diversify your threats so that you can play around Meddling Mage.
Right now, Rizzi's in a position where he's going to fire off Opt, but very likely needs to use the Path to Exile in his hand right away here to stem the bleeding.
But as you can see, he's looking at the top of the deck, and Opt is an inclusion to these blue-white control decks because you can actually use it in conjunction with something like Terminus and Miracle Terminus on your opponent's turn, which is very, very powerful.
He's going to use Path to Exile to kill the Mantis Rider, the biggest threat on the other side of the battlefield, and hopefully to buy him some time, as he does not currently have one of those sweepers in his hand. He does have 2 copies of the big boy Jace the Mind Sculptor, as well as a Cryptic Command and a Detention Sphere plus a Plains. He just found the Detention Sphere off of that Opt. He chose to put the card on the bottom and then drew the Sphere.
Yeah, and Huang opting to make kind of an adjustment to the Humans deck that we've seen a lot of different players choose for this tournament. He's playing 4 copies of Militia Bugler as one of the Humans for his deck, and this, you know, a powerful card allows you to, you know, kind of grind out a lot of these control decks a little bit more. You know, oftentimes in those control decks that you've seen in the past, there have been a couple of flex slots. You've seen people play Kessig Malcontent, Restoration Angel, but instead, now you can just play 4 copies of Militia Bugler, which can kind of help you smooth out your draws, find additional copies of Thalia's Lieutenant, or Disruptive Creatures.
That's right. And of course, you get those triggers from being a human anytime that those are relevant. And a reasonable body, 2/3 Vigilance is okay.
Wow, and Mateo Rizzi gets to live the dream.
Oh,
Detention Spear getting
double trouble.
double Thalia's Lieutenant. And the Humans deck has no answer, no way to get rid of the Detention Spear game 1.
Funny, I said he didn't have any sweepers. I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, there you go. There's a sweeper.
3-mana sweeper in this case takes care of all of the power and toughness on the other side. All Haoshan can do is say, okay, well, I guess I'll take my Ether Vial up to 3, but he better have something powerful here.
Yeah, so what Haoshan Huang is considering here is, you know, he does have a Meddling Mage in hand and the Vial on 3. He can choose to just deploy both of them and just try to figure out what to name with that Meddling Mage. It's really difficult because there are a lot of different sweepers in Rizzi's deck. The one that is most common, however, is the Terminus. But he is pretty far away from actually casting that Terminus. Now, there are ways for Mattia to actually be able to see the top card of his deck. He does have 2 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor, which does allow him to try to set up situations where he can have opt on his opponent's turn and cast Terminus.
Looks like he named Supreme Verdict there,
Okay.
at least from what I can tell.
And Rizzi currently with lots of powerful spells in hand, but a little light on mana.
Yep, and he's missing a land drop this turn, in fact. Facing down that Mantis Rider, he does have the answer to it with Path to Exile. He's got a Teferi Hero of Dominaria in hand. Yeah, we're still in Modern.
Wow. Thalia's
Thalia's
Lieutenant number 3.
Boy, that's a really good draw step there for Haoshan. It lets him put counters on both of his other creatures and increases this clock dramatically, though Path to Exile will stem the bleeding and mean that Mattia's only taking 3 damage this turn, but still.
But Hao is out of cards. And Rizzi does have the Terminuses. If he can find a Terminus here off the top, if he can Miracle one into play, he's going to be looking really good because his hand is full of very, very powerful Planeswalkers, and he has that Cryptic Command in hand. It's really interesting to see Teferi just kind of not only be a powerhouse in Standard, but it's also shown up in Modern and even some Blue-White Legacy control decks. I've seen it all over the place. So very, very important here that Rizzi found land number 4. Has a multitude of options here.
Jace, Cryptic Command. Maybe he just wants to buy himself another turn with a Cryptic, a bounce and a tap, or a draw and a tap, or something along those lines.
Right, so Jace doesn't do a whole lot here in the sense that if he uses a Jace to bounce the Meddling Mage, then Haoshan Huang can just replay the Meddling Mage, and then the Thalia's Lieutenant could get rid of the Jace. He could choose to use the Jace as a very expensive Brainstorm effect by playing it and just using the 0 to try to find a sweeper to deal with the creatures that are on the board because he has that secondary copy. Another thing that he can choose to do is just cast Cryptic Command this turn. Maybe tap down your team and draw a card. Certainly a reasonable option. Buy you some life and also draw a card. Try to smooth out your draws. Look for a sweeper. So one interesting thing is, I guess Haoshan Huang has Ether Vial on 3, but had he had it on 2, there could have been a situation where, you know, Haoshan Huang goes Combat Step, Rizzi tries to fetch that Flooded Strand. In response, if Haoshan had the read, he could put in a Meddling Mage and name Cryptic Command.
By the way, I was wrong earlier. It wasn't Supreme Verdict. It was Snapcaster Mage named by the Meddling Mage.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so that's something that we'll keep in mind, though not currently relevant as there are no Snapcasters in hand here for Rizzi. But a second copy of Meddling Mage is now on the stack, and now the time is now for him to decide if he wants to cast the the Cryptic Command.
Yeah, so he cannot counter it as there's a Cavern of Souls in play.
That's right.
So all he can do is probably just let it resolve, or not let it resolve. He can use the Cryptic Command to tap down Haoshan Huang's team and draw a card, and I think that's probably what he's going to look to do here.
If that was his plan anyway, then he has to do it now, or else risk Haoshan saying Cryptic Command and shutting that thing off forever.
Yeah, what else could Rizzi realistically have here, right? He's got 4 cards in hand. He tanked a little bit, so he maybe has a play on his turn on turn 4, but clearly it wasn't a sweeper, and he passed with 4 mana up. Cryptic Command is the only card that he really could be representing here. Potentially maybe a 3rd Path to Exile, but Cryptic is far more likely here.
And he's going to say, tap your team and draw a card just like you described, Paul. Again, the counter option not viable here.
Yeah, so at this point, given that Rizzi has played a cryptic command, I could see him, Huang looking to name a sweeper. The problem is, which one do you name in this
how do you
spot?
even decide? I mean, I guess if you studied a lot of deck lists, you might have a little bit of a leg up on it, but it's pretty varied.
Wow, huge draw from Rizzi.
What did he hit?
drew a sweeper. Wrath of God. Will Huang name Wrath of God here?
Look at him. He's in the tank. If he names it, it could give him a huge advantage.
This is so huge. He needs to name the right sweeper. I mean, Terminus is the card that Rizzi has the most copies of in his deck, so that makes sense. What did he name? Rizzi is untapping pretty quickly. I don't think he named Wrath of God.
It wasn't Wrath of God because he just put it on the stack, and you can't even do that. So, well, we didn't find out what he named necessarily, but it's not relevant anymore because it's in the graveyard. And bang, just like that, Mattia Rizzi way ahead in the game. Haushan's still stone cold top deck, and he has nothing going on. And he just passes the turn back. Now we're going to see Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, now Jace is going to be slammed onto the battlefield. Oh, he drew land number 5. You know what?
Yeah.
Teferi.
Yeah, I do know what.
You know what? Play Teferi.
That's right.
Untap your lands. Even found a play to utilize his mana with that opt.
Oof, that's nice. I like that.
He now has all of the options available to him, and it's going to be really difficult for Haushan to get out of this.
Yeah, he's got to go through the motions here, play Athalia's Lieutenant, but I think we're just about done here. It feels like only drawing 1 card per turn for Haushan, it's going to be almost impossible for him to keep
Is
up
this a
with the
Terminus?
answers.
No, okay.
Would you cast it?
Probably not. You have a Jace. Yeah. I don't know how many other instant speed card draw effects he was. He really just wants to hit land drops at this point. He has just so many powerful spells in hand. Now he's going to have Teferi plus Jace in play, and he'll have access to 3 mana here.
Boy, I've heard these decks called Super Friends, you know, the ones with lots of Planeswalkers, but these are super, super friends.
Teferi and Jace, best buds.
Oh my God, that
Look
is
at this.
nasty. I'm loving this.
Oh, yeah. And this will
Brainstorm.
surely find Rizzi a land here. Yep.
It did indeed.
I like how Rizzi his play just seems much more confident now. You know, just like he's flicking the cards just a lot more crisp. He's like, I got 2 Planeswalkers in play. You to name Wrath of God. I'm feeling pretty good here.
Has he perhaps already played his land for the turn?
No, he hasn't played a land,
has
right?
not.
He played Teferi last turn.
He didn't put his cards back yet.
I was thinking of what to do this turn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, I was so far ahead, I forgot to put my cards back.
From Jace, shuffle the card, thinking on what to do this turn, and then just play land without put the card on top. Yeah, without put the card on top.
Failure to return a card from top of the library.
Yeah.
You need to be.
Sure. Top.
Okay, well, I guess he just gets to do it now and then play his land.
Yeah, and he's just got everything. He's got Cryptic Command in hand to stop, some Ether Vial shenanigans. He's got Best Buds in play. He's got that Colonnade on the battlefield as well.
Haushan's like, what am I even supposed to do here?
Um,
Attack you?
Before blocks.
Before blocks. Snapcaster Mage.
Target.
Opt, I guess.
he could target Opt or Path to Exile.
Which one? Path Exile.
Path to Exile. Yeah, why not? You might as well keep the Snapcaster around.
Block and block.
Yeah.
Huh?
Automatic.
Damage.
I guess he doesn't want to
Okay.
use the I guess he's just going to prevent Haushan from casting another creature this turn anyway.
He just wanted to play an Ambush Viper, you
Sure.
know?
Sometimes you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Get all these Planeswalkers that are just rotting away in Rizzi's hand.
Yeah, poor Rizzi.
Oh, look
no,
at this. Another
one.
Jace.
He's Jace flooded.
Yeah.
Rizzi has a Jace on the battlefield and 2 in hand. Is that? I
Right.
guess he might have put one of those back.
I mean, he has so many cards. He might be plussing Jace at this point because You
He
know,
just did.
that is a legitimate way to win the game.
Yeah.
Chase Ultimate.
Yeah, you know how you win the game? Your opponent goes, all right, we're not doing
I'm
this.
done. I am
Scoops
done.
them up. Hashan Wing says, I've had enough. I had a good start, but a bad finish. And a little smirk there from Mattia Rizzi because he definitely turned the corner with that Wrath of God, sweeping things up after the detention sphere did its job. And boom, the Planeswalkers cleaned up the mess here in game number 1. That one goes to Mattia Rizzi. We're going to be jumping around to the other tables and getting some results and such after these messages. And welcome back to the feature match area here in Minneapolis. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon. But got some match updates down on the floor from Tim Willoughby.
It has been a good first set of games for Team MTGO traders here as we go into our game twos. On table A, that being our legacy table, it was Jacob Wilson taking game 1 in the mirror of Bug Delver. It worked out that with both of these players on very similar decks, Wastelands, 2 Wastelands from Wilson early on kept Sajgalik off his early threats. Ultimately, a Goyf and Nimble Mongoose able to clean that one up. We're going to get a chance to see that game 2 soon enough. On the back table, it was Control against Turbo Fog and Control in the hands of Shenhar. Pretty handily taking things down in game 1. A couple of Gear Hulks actually doing the damage, but prior to that, of course, Counter Magic on removal on Nissa and Teferi was enough to make sure that for the 2-time world champion, it was a straightforward enough game 1. All 3 game 1s going to Team MTGO traders.
Thank you, Tim. Ooh. We've seen that a lot today. A lot of times the games start out with a sweep for game 1s. It doesn't end that way necessarily, though.
Right.
So we'll, of course, be keeping an eye on these. We are in round number 12 here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're happy to have you along. Giving away $850,000 in prize money for the Pro Tour. We've also got the Silver Showcase happening alongside it for another $150,000. That one we're going to be doing the semifinals after we're done with the Swiss rounds today here at the main event of the PT. So hopefully you'll stick around and watch that. Some fun nostalgia, especially if you used to play back in the day. I think you will enjoy it. In the meantime, table A. Eduardo Sajgalik on the left-hand side of your screen on Teamer Delver finds himself down a game to Jacob Wilson, also playing Teamer Delver, though it looks like Sajgalik, being on the play this time, has played his land, kicked things off with Ponder, Shuffle. I don't like what I see.
Yeah, so Sajgalik has kind of a different take on the traditional Teamer Delver decks that we've seen in the past. You know, primarily the win conditions in other Teamer Delver decks have been Nimble Mongoose, Tarmogoyf, and Delver of Secrets. Here, Eduardo has opted to forego the Nimble Mongooses for 4 copies of Bomat Courier.
Oh, that is different.
Get in there.
Love it. In the meantime, Jacob Wilson says, you know, I like your style. I'm going to play the exact same Tropical Island, and I'm going to play the exact same artwork on Ponder. Let's see if he shuffles, too. Also interesting to note here is Eduardo does have a copy of Daze in his hand, but has chosen not to deploy it here. Not going to fight over the cantrips, it seems.
Right.
This time, Jacob Wilson keeps the cards. No shuffle for him. You see a Wasteland in hand now for Sajgalik, but he's also got a Brainstorm.
Yeah, both decks really just are very, very light on mana sources. So oftentimes the Daze will be able to find a target.
He's going to kick things off by just Wastelanding and then passing the turn back. Nothing else to do.
Yeah, and a common play there too is using a Wasteland to get your opponent's land off the battlefield so that you can play around Daze and make sure you resolve a threat.
There's a Delver.
All right, this might be something that gets dazed here.
He said, I'm going to float a blue mana and then play Daze.
Right. This is, of course, to not only be able to play the Brainstorm that he has in hand, but also just to potentially, you know, have mana up for Daze. But it looks like he did not go for the Brainstorm. Starting out a little slow here.
Land go, but nothing on board for either player outside of the lands.
Yeah, and Eduardo Sajgalik has a nice little sideboard tech card in Submerge.
He does have one in his hand right now, and it is now live thanks to that Tropical Island hitting the battlefield for Wilson.
But cannot target the Nimble Mongoose.
Nimble indeed.
Shroud.
Yeah. Paul, would they ever print a card like Nimble Mongoose now? Maybe.
Yeah, I
Shroud
can't
doesn't
even remember.
exist
Shroud is no longer a thing. So
Yeah.
you know, oftentimes hexproof is the way we go about it. Although I
that'd be a
think we
little
are
too good, huh?
looking to avoid making 1-mana hexproof creatures, as don't necessarily need to support the Boggles deck a little more. Sorry, Maria.
Yeah, sorry, Maria. Bad news for you, good news for literally everybody else. Here's a Delver.
8's good enough.
For Jacob Wilson. That Nimble Mongoose, just a 1/1 currently, but if you've ever seen this Teamer Delver, it's also called Rug Delver, also called Canadian Threshold at one point.
Lots of names.
Yeah,
Lots of names.
it
A
does
deck of
have
many
the
names.
ability
It has been around for a long time.
It has.
You know, for a good period of time, it was kind of the, you know, most people opted to play Grixis Delver, as, you know, you had Deathrite Shaman, and it was just too powerful of a card to pass up on. But given that given that Deathrite Shaman is no longer really, it is no longer an option, you know, you've seen kind of different flavors of Delver also pop up. We've seen, of course, the blue-black Death Shadow deck. We've seen Grixis Delver, and now we also get to see some Teamer Delver.
That was a pretty nice brainstorm there. He sees multiple answers now in hand for that Delver of Secrets. He saw Red Elemental Blast, also a Lightning Bolt, which could get the job done.
Yeah, but at some point, Eduardo does need to find an answer for that Nimble Mongoose.
Yes.
He, you know, and really
Oh,
the
here's
only
Submerge Ball.
well, the only way to actually deal with it is for him to actually play Tarmogoyf or True Name Nemesis to block.
That's right. But in the meantime, though, he's deploying Submerge to put the Delver of Secrets back on top of the library. Though it looks like Pyroblast is going to hit that, and we're going to see Daze in response. And so sorry, Delver, back on top of the library for you.
Right, but I don't know if Eduardo has... Does he have an answer? Okay, he drew a Red Elemental Blast, which is an answer for the Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, he actually hit that with the Brainstorm, but decided that he wanted to buy himself some time with the Submerge and then maybe go for it later. There's land number 3 as well as a pair of Lightning Bolts.
Right, so plenty of answers for that Delver of Secrets. And I actually think Sajgalik may have wanted to find a fetch land here, because he doesn't really need both of those Lightning Bolts. But now he's kind of, it looks, I don't know if he has a Ponder in hand. Let's take a look. He doesn't, so he might, he might be Brainstorm locked here for a few turns. But he does have a play. He does have that True Name Nemesis that he can deploy in turn 3.
But looks to be in a good position. I mean, the Delver of Secrets, that's not going to stick around in the face of double Lightning Bolt. Oh, Tarmogoyf might, though. And that thing, much harder to interact with while it's on the stack compared to Delver. He's got that red elemental blast that isn't doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, does Jacob Wilson have either Force of Will or
Yeah,
Date
that's what I
here?
was just wondering. Because if he can counter the True Name Nemesis, it feels like he's in great position to win the match here. But if the True Name Nemesis resolves, that will be a big problem.
Yeah, given the amount of pressure that Jacob Wilson has on the battlefield, it seems like Sajgalik has no choice but to just tap out and play this True Name Nemesis. He also knows that there are no lands on top because he cast a Brainstorm, so he has to go for it here. And I think Jacob Wilson should go for the Brainstorm here.
For
The Force of Will and exiling the Brainstorm.
And he is, in fact, attempting that, and it
Oh,
worked.
that's big.
That was probably the match falling apart there for Eduardo Sajgalik, knowing the bad news on top of his library, no lands, can't play around days. And look at this, a second Tarmogoyf now for Jacob Wilson as he crashes into the red zone. That Nimble Mongoose still not quite at threshold level, but it's getting there. And this one, these Lightning Bolts are not going to get the job done. He didn't even have 2 red mana sources at the moment to maybe try to double bolt a Goyf if that would even work.
Yeah, and again, he Brainstormed and he kind of locked himself. There were no fetch lands. He doesn't really have an answer.
He can take care of this Delver of Secrets, but boy, that's probably 3rd on the list.
Right.
He's going to use Red Elemental Blast to take it down. Though the Nimble Mongoose still isn't big, but that's lethal.
And that'll give himself Threshold as well for the Nimble Mongoose.
Flusterstorm to counter the Lightning Bolt, but it is pure desperation mode as Sajgalik's going to fall, I think, to 1. Yeah, and that's going to do it. Jacob Wilson in 2 quick games defeats Eduardo Sajgalik and earns the first match for his team this round. And once again, just like last time, he gets to look down the row at his teammates and say, win a game.
Right.
Just win 1 game, and we're going to take this round packing. And they're looking pretty good here. Wilson, Rizzi, and Shenhar are 8-3. Don't have any wiggle room. We do think the cut is going to be right around that X-3. In this case, it would be 11-3 record. So
I think it's,
they have to win.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that you're saying these creatures that have kind of been far less popular in Modern these days, cards like Tarmogoyf and Death Shadow, you don't see it in Modern as much, but now you're seeing it in Legacy.
That's right. All right, we get to see Turbo Fog versus Esper Control. Yamwing Chung on the
this one might
left.
take some time.
It could.
But I find that, game ones typically tend to be the longest games in these matchups. After sideboard, you just have access to, all your dead removal spells become counter magic. Sometimes people bring in uncounterable creatures, and that definitely makes the matchups a lot faster. And Shenhar here, look at this. This is a Glint-Sleeve Siphoner out of the sideboard, turn 2, against the Fog deck, which I imagine likely boarded out most of its Fogs.
Little give and go here from Shenhar. Like, hey, don't worry about it. Take those Fogs out, and boom, now he's facing down a really annoying threat, right?
Yeah.
Glint-Sleeve Siphoner is a source of damage and card advantage in 1 2-mana spell. It could be a real problem for Yami if he doesn't have an answer.
And taking a look at Yamwing Chun's list, he has a lot of ways to prevent himself from taking damage in the form of Fogs, but he doesn't have an actual hard removal in his main. He does have access to Cast Out in the sideboard, which he may have brought in here. But bringing in a card like Cast Out is a little bit risky when you play against a control deck that has access to cards like Teferi to get rid of the Cast Out.
Combat trigger. Now, he is up to 2 energy now, so next turn, if that thing's still there, he will be able to draw a card. And you got to figure that if Shenhar gets to start kind of cascading cards with the Siphoner, that it'll fall away pretty quickly from Yam. I mean, Shenhar does have the tools to combat Yam's game plan in the form of counterspells and even removal of some of the planeswalkers. And it's going to be very difficult for him to go card for card if Shahar's drawing an extra card every other turn.
Yeah, Shahar's deck, after sideboard, he's going to have access to cards like more counter magic, negates, Jace's defeat. The rest are all cards that Shenhar could have into the sideboard, and those are all highly effective.
Pushes and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, Fatal Push. Vraska's Contempt you'll definitely keep in, as the deck does play Teferi and Karn. But yeah, I mean, those basically 4 Fatal Push and Cast Down, those are instantly going out of the deck.
Not the only planeswalker that he plays. He also plays Nissa, Steward of Elements, as you can see. And I believe what Yam's doing here by turning Nissa sideways is signifying how many times he's used the planeswalker thus far. And that's because, well, he actually plays Oath of Teferi somewhere in this list, does he not?
There is a singular copy of Oath of Teferi in his deck. So, what Oath of Teferi does is it allows you to use your planeswalker abilities an additional time. So you can do some really, really sweet things with Oath of Teferi, especially with a card like Teferi, where you get to draw 2 cards. End of turn, you can tap 4 mana, float the mana, untap those 4 lands, and then you can cast actually Nexus of Fate at instant speed.
Oh my, that's insane. And of course, if you combine Oath of Teferi with taking extra turns, you're talking about an avalanche of planeswalker activations that will surely lock up the game in short order.
Yeah, but this matchup is difficult because Shenhar is playing the full 4 copies of Vraska's Contempt on top of just a slew of counter magic. It's going to be really, really difficult for Yam Wing-Chun to just fight through all of this. Oh, is that a Carnage Tyrant?
Old Carney T?
Little Carney T.
Yeah, he's got 4 in his board.
4 Carnage Tyrants in Yam Wing-Chun's sideboard. You know what I love about Yam Wing-Chun's sideboard?
Huh.
It's 4 cards. He's just keeping it simple here. He's got a bunch of counterspells, some cast outs, and a Carnage Tyrant here. So he's got a Carnage Tyrant, and that is a pretty reasonable strategy, given that a lot of people, in order to fight your game 1 strategies, to bring in a lot of counterspells, right? You have a lot of people bringing in cards like Negate, and if you just manage to have 4 gigantic, uncounterable, hexproof dinosaurs, that can get the job done. Oftentimes you'll see these, blue-white control decks, for example, board out their Fumigates and their Settle the Wreckages, and when they do that, I mean, Carney T can do a lot of work.
Glimmer of Genius is the play here for Shenhar.
And if you notice Yam Wing-Chun's hand here, he's got a couple of what looks like mountains. Those are not actually mountains. Those are actually Nexus of Fates in his deck, and he was allowed to proxy them as the only available Nexus of Fate is a foil. So he just didn't want to make sure that he had just those as the foils in his deck.
I'm going to draw a card first. Go to 1 energy. 18 life. 1 energy. Draw a card. And then search triggers.
Disallow.
It's okay. Are they not starting game 2?
I get to draw a card for turns also.
Yeah, and look at Shahar's hand. Multiple Jace's defeats in hand. Not going to be able to counter that Carney T.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
I'm just drawing for turn.
Yeah, you're good.
That was the card from Search for Escanta. He decided just to put the Fetid Pools in the yard, as he's hitting his land drops anyway.
Attack, Nissa, trigger.
Attack Nissa, trigger. Sure. Nissa takes 2.
Currently, Nissa will not be able to die because they are just trading +2 and 2 damage back and forth.
I have 8.
And both of them also kind of smoothing out their draws. Nissa with the Scry ability and Glint-Sleeve Siphoner with the card draw effect.
An embarrassment of riches now for Shenhar. As he's got 8 cards in hand and actually has to discard. I think I know what time it is.
It's Carnage time.
It's Carnage time. What is Shenhar going to do?
I
About
don't even...
Carnage time? It's uncounterable. Does he have...
He has Torrential Gearhulk, but that doesn't size up very well against Carnage Tyrant.
He needs
he might need to double block with Glint Sleeve Siphoner and a Torrential Gearhulk.
And he'd lose both?
Right. He also has a Scarab God in his deck,
Okay.
which he could potentially draw.
Get his own Carnage.
But it is very,
There
very
it is!
difficult. There it is.
Carnage Tyrant hits the battlefield. Can't be countered. Is huge and even has hexproof.
Yeah.
And Shenhar goes, yep.
Yep, and this was an Andrew Brown special. Now, Andrew Brown is a member of Play Design, and he was kind of known for being the control player. He won a Grand Prix playing a control deck, and
he made Carnage?
No. So then he was given the task. It's like, hey, if control decks are too strong, we need a good countermeasure. Give us the best creature that you can make that's good against control decks.
Smart.
And he's like, coming right up, Carney T.
Served up some fresh dino, and control players have been complaining about it ever since. By the way, Shenhar did draw the Scarab God for the turn.
Yeah.
So that does give him a way to potentially just outgrind a card like a Carnage Tyrant over time.
Right.
But currently, there's no creatures in anybody's graveyard. Here's a Duress from Shenhar.
So trying to play it a little bit safe here, get information, just in case. Shenhar did have the option of just tapping out and playing Scarab God this turn and set himself up for the double block to get rid of Carnage Tyrant. But he wants to make sure the coast is clear. He can afford to take one hit from the Carnage Tyrant. So, yeah.
Also, he'll be happy to see that there's not more Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah, Yam actually just kind of had the win here. If he just drew land number 7, he could have gone Carnage Tyrant, Nexus of Fate, attack you again, Nexus of Fate, attack you again.
7, 14,
21.
21.
Siphoner will not get it done.
No, especially with Trample. So now what? You can see Jacob Wilson has, after having won his match, came over to help out Shenhar, who does take Nexus of Fate, leaving Yam with just the one. So he won't be able to just win. That is, unless he finds another.
Yeah, so
he does have more.
One thing that you've seen a lot is, in this team format is oftentimes players don't help too often, because when these players are testing for the Pro Tour, they're so focused on the format that they're responsible for, they feel like they can't contribute enough. But the one format I think a lot of the pros can assist in is Standard, because just over the course of the last year, people just play a lot of Standard. So that's the one format that people can help on. But I would guess that it's far less likely that you would see maybe Shenhar helping Jacob Wilson playing the Rug Delver deck. Also, you might need a collective effort here to be to devise a way to play against a deck that's really not that familiar for a lot of people.
Follow-up play for Shenhar was the Scarab God.
Oh, so he had the land for the Scarab God. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, so Shenhar is setting up the double block here, and Yam doesn't have a great attack here. If he attacks, Shenhar can just double block with the Scarab God and the Siphoner, and then at the end of turn, the Scarab God will be returned to Shenhar's hand.
Yeah, Yam would really love to just get rid of one of those creatures, even temporarily, but...
Yeah. He does have the ability to tick up Nissa and then play a Nexus of Fate. Actually, it's better to play the Nexus of Fate, as it does get shuffled back into your deck, and then you can use the Nissa to scry and try to just continue finding additional Nexus of Fates.
But the problem is that if he does attack, he's losing his Carnage Tyrant. So this Nexus of Fate went from being put huge pressure on your life total to the point that if I find a second copy, the game ends, to draw a card?
Yeah, well,
Is
gotta
that
do what you... Well, scry 2 draw a card.
Scry 2 draw a card
Preordain.
thanks to the Planeswalker. Okay. 7 mana Preordain.
Right. And then you also get the Nissa a little bit closer to ultimating. You have to turn some of your lands. Oh, that's a Nexus of Fate.
It was.
And that's a Teferi that he currently cannot cast, I believe. He does not have access to any white mana right now.
We see 1 white mana source in his graveyard.
The thing is, getting a Nexus of Fate is pretty free. I mean, you draw it, you cast it, and you do just get 2 additional loyalty counters on the Nissa. So there's no reason not to put the Nexus of Fate on top.
Right. And he does exactly that.
Yeah, I've seen multiple different players use different strategies to kind of denote how many turns they have. Because sometimes when this deck goes off, you can have multiple turns, like in the queue, basically. And I believe I saw one player have 5 turns on the stack. And his opponent still did not concede, but it was just funny to see just a little thing that says extra turns with the number 5 on it.
That is something.
So here, as you can see, Nissa's a -6 ability here allows you to untap a couple of lands and turn them into 5/5 flyers until end of turn. So they are not permanent, which is kind of a mode you see on a lot of other Nissas that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, kind of in the air fireball for 10.
Yes, I actually got to see Yam Wing Chun utilize the Nissa ultimate twice in the same turn and attack for 20 damage.
Okay, that is a
air.
possibility, though. He's going to need to keep finding Nexus of Fate. Did he do it again?
I don't
He did.
know.
He did.
He did?
Yeah, I think he found Anticipate Nexus of Fate.
Wow.
What's going on here?
Okay, well. Oh, and he has a white source. He's got that irrigated farmland.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Nexus of Fate and Shahar's got to be like, really?
Come on.
3 in a row?
How many do you have?
All of them.
All of them. All right, so Yam Wing Chun gets another turn, likely going to use the Nissa ability to scry here to find some action. I don't know if he brought in the cast outs, but they would be very good here if you could use it on the Scarab God.
Yeah,
then he could start attacking with the Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah, especially with that farmland now.
All right, time to scry.
Oh, what is she at, 10 now?
She's currently at 10.
Oh, there
There's
was
a
a
cast
cast
out.
out. Yes.
Yeah.
He found a cast out and a land. Or a cast out and a something, but
Right.
geez, every time we say the card, he just peels.
So
Gonna
if he
keep the cast out and put the other card on the bottom.
Right, so now he can cast out the Scarab God, and then very curious to see what he chooses to do with the Nissa here. He can choose to ultimate the Nissa and get in for 17 points of damage by animating 2 of his lands, turning them into 5/5 flyers, and on top of the Carnage Tyrant, that's 17. Shahar's currently at 17 life,
Yeah.
so he's going to need to actually chump block with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner and still go down to 1.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, I don't know how easy it is for Yam to get that last point of damage in, though I suppose the Carnage Tyrant pretty much makes that inevitable.
Right. And I think Yam is also very interested in getting that Siphoner off the board because once Siphoner gets the chump block, Shahar no longer has that double block available to get that
That's right.
Carnage Tyrant off the board. So yeah, I think that the play is to ultimate your Nissa, turn your lands into 5/5s, and then attack with everything. He can also he doesn't actually have to cast out main phase.
He tapped it.
Oh, he floated the mana.
He
Okay,
flooded-
this makes sense.
He floated mana.
Yeah.
And there we go. Attack you for 17.
He's like, you have to
He says,
chump.
you have to chump. You're going to go to 1. Now, these lands are not going to stay 5/5s, but he still has Carnage Tyrant there, as we mentioned. And, putting out power and toughness is not what Shahar's deck's all about.
Right, and Yam Wing Chun has a Jace's Defeat in hand, too, for a potential... I don't even know.
Gear Hulk's still not big enough.
Yeah, Gear Hulk doesn't do it. Teferi doesn't do it. And he can counter all of those.
This has just been an absurd game.
Is Carnage Tyrant going to go all the way here?
Yam finds 3 copies of Nexus and just takes a bunch of turns in a row.
To tick up that Nissa.
Yeah. And that ultimately was 10 damage in the air. And now we're going to see what looks to be a lethal attack.
6 cards in hand.
And I think Yam just trying to figure out, like, what could you have here?
Settle or something?
Maybe settle the wreckage,
Yeah.
which Jason
But what is he
does
going to
not
do?
counter.
Not attack?
Right, right. You don't
No.
put Carnage Tyrant in your deck to not attack. Come on.
Right.
And at this point, Shenhar has so many cards in hand. This is really your route to victory. You can't play a long game currently.
Got to do it, Yami.
Get in there. Boom.
Paul, last time we wanted him to go to combat with 2 cards in hand. It didn't work out well for him when you and I were in the booth. But this time, I think it will.
So what can he
7
torrential
damage
Gear Hulk?
of trample. But as we mentioned, Jace's defeat is going to counter it.
Right. And Shenhar has his own Jace's defeat, but I think he's just dead on board.
He is, and that's it. Yam Wing Chun picks up the first game for his team. That is the first game that they've won in this entire round. And it was hard fought. He did earn it.
Also, going in, this is not the deck I would have expected Yam Wing Chun to play.
That's right.
He is known for,
Turn
playing and
those
doing well
creatures sideways
with some of those red creatures.
Yeah. But he's shown that he has a wide range of decks that
Right.
he can be proficient in, and this one's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
as it turns out. That was fun. That was a cool one. I'm glad we got a chance to see the Turbo Fog deck go a little bit, though I got to say the positioning here from Yam, from Haoshan, and from Eduardo still not looking very good. With Jacob Wilson having already taken down his match, they are on the razor's edge with nary a game to lose. Here's Mattia Rizzi playing blue-white control up against Haoshan, who's on humans.
But ideal start, that turn 1 Ether Vial. I wonder what, how much your win percentage shifts, whether or not you have that turn 1 Vial, but no second land.
I would say his win percentage has shifted downwards sharply in the face of that missed land drop, though. His deck doesn't need that. I mean, it curves out at, what, 3?
Yeah. And Mattia Rizzi has Celestial Purge in hand. You might be asking, why did he bring those cards in? Well, first of all, he has, negates, logic knots, and spell snares. Counter magic is just not something you want in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So anything in his sideboard that he has to bring in that's somewhat relevant, he'll bring in. So Celestial Purge does have a few targets, not a ton, but it can get Kitesail Freebooter and Mantis Rider
By the
out
way,
of Haoshan Huang's list.
There's one right now. And there it is, Celestial Purge to take it out. And he does get to, of course, resolve the ability, but he won't get to take a card.
Yeah. Kitesail Freebooter kind of has the updated text on these enter the battlefield effects where with the trigger on the stack, if you do kill it, you get to show your opponent your hand, but you will not actually lose a card. Unlike a card like Mesmeric Fiend that have existed in the past. Or Tide Hollow Sculler? I
Yeah,
believe.
even Oblivion Ring.
Right.
Game 2. Game 2.
I think we don't touch this.
Oh, we can bigger.
Oh, use it? Yeah, actually that's better. Yeah, use it. But we can choose anyways. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we can draw.
So Haoshan Huang currently
Increase it next turn.
all of his spells will be cast more or less with just that Ether Vial. And it looks, and they're deciding whether or not they want to go from 2 to 3. But if
that
Haoshan Huang
Gaddock
has
Teeg?
a handful of 2s, he might want to just leave it on 2.
He has a
Trust
Gaddock
you, it's
Teeg.
not gonna get better.
Right. Okay, he does have a Gaddock.
That
which,
shuts out a lot of the cards from Mattia Rizzi.
Yeah.
Let's see. Right now he's got Wrath of God, Terminus, Cryptic Command in his hand.
Far our best card right now.
That's a problem.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of answers to a Gaddock Teeg. You get a Path to Exile or something along those lines, but still.
Yeah, Mattia Rizzi has Path to Exile, Condemn, and Detention Sphere as answers. But, I mean, look at his hand. It's shutting down a lot of those cards. He does have a Vendilion Click, however, which he can use to get in the way of the Gaddock Teeg.
He's going to target himself to get rid of one of these Terminus.
Yeah, he really wants to find Path to Exile here.
Oh,
What was that?
that was a Ancestral Vision.
Okay. Can cast that one.
6 cards still, right? Yeah.
Can certainly suspend it.
Yeah. Now they're still trying to figure out what they want to do here with the Ether Vial.
Yeah, you heard Eduardo Sajgalik talking to Haoshan and saying, oh, it doesn't matter right now, but don't tick it up, is what he said before,
Yeah.
at least.
He has just a ton of 2s in his hand, so he really wants to be able to deploy those. And I think the moment he draws the second land is when he could consider going up to 3 on the Ether Vial.
And he did go up to 3.
Oh, he did go up to 3.
He did, yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that he drew his second land, though.
All right.
I think he's got a Sin Collector that he may want to deploy here.
Right.
You have to figure that Rizzi would have used a Path to Exile already if he had one. So
Right.
you may just be taking away something redundant, something that the
He drew 2 cards.
Gaddock Teeg is already shutting off. But
This is interesting. So the only card that Rizzi can cast here, or cast, is the Ancestral Vision. So maybe Haoshan Huang goes for that, or will he just choose to get one of those sweepers out of the way? Because, you know, there might be a reasonable chance that Rizzi finds a Path to Exile or Detention Sphere.
Yeah.
The way it's currently set up, you know, Rizzi can't even attack with the Gadok Teak, so there isn't even a huge clock currently. So
yeah,
if the
Haoshan
game
can't attack.
right,
Yeah.
so if the game goes long, you want to kind of plan around that. Now, if the game does go long, Ancestor Vision is also a very, very strong card. So, you know, that could just be the card that he chooses to take here. Snapcaster being the only card that Sin Collector cannot take.
We can take visions this turn.
He decides to take the only card left that was A, targetable by Sin Collector, and B, castable by Rizzi. Was that a land off the top for Mattia?
I'm not sure.
Two Cryptic, Raft, Terminus, Snap. So now he has to draw Path.
Might have been a Field of Ruin.
I love it. We've got Eduardo Sajgalik, who, you know, sometimes joins us in the booth at the Grand Prix, and he's doing a little commentary for us down on the floor, talking about the outs. That Rizzi
Doing
has
his
at
own
this
Ben
point.
Stark
Yeah, he's like, well, now
impersonation
he's
there.
got to draw a path. Or
Yeah. So given
That was a
that,
land.
okay. So given that he drew a land,
Are there any basics for? Got to shuffle, but Field of Ruin.
so yeah, he's using a Field of Ruin to keep Haoshan Huang off white mana.
It's got an island.
I think Haoshan Huang, he actually has Island and Plains in his deck, so
Okay.
he decided that Island is the land that he preferred here. Allows him to cast Phantasmal Image if he draws any land.
Eduardo's a big Gaddock Teague fan at the moment. It is shutting off Mattia's hand at this point outside of a Snapcaster Mage.
Haoshan Huang really, really needs to find that second mana source. I mean, this Ether Vial has worked overtime, but
Yeah, he's struggling now. Haoshan's going to offer the trade for the Vendilion Click. Though it looks like Rizzi's going to decline it and just go down to 18. Not a massive attack at this point. And no land here for Haoshan Huang. He's just passed the turn back to Rizzi.
so Rizzi does still have that Snapcaster Mage in hand. So if he really wants, he can go Snapcaster Mage Celestial Purge to get the Sin Collector. And this looks like
there's
an
Militia
end-of-turn
Bugler.
Bugler.
Yep.
Now he just wants more threes. Can he find another 3-drop off this Militia Bugler?
Yeah, something like a Mantis Rider, which he actually did have the option on a Mantis Rider, but didn't take it, I believe.
So he chose to go with Thalia here because he does know that Rizzi has Snapcaster Mage in hand.
Oh,
so
and
Mantis Rider
also,
doesn't do a whole lot.
You also can't take it.
Oh,
It's actually the only thing I think in the whole deck.
they figured it out a little fast. Yeah, that's the only target Bugler, of course, can take because it has to
I
be
think it's
power.
the only card in the deck, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like everything's either 0, 1, or 2 besides the Mantis Rider.
Right. Of course.
It was kind of funny because I think they were thinking about it, and Eduardo's like, well,
Wait, but you can't do it. Yep,
need
yep,
that
yep.
one. Oh, he has found a land here. It looks like a Horizon Canopy off the top for Haoshan as well.
Yeah. Big draw.
Yeah.
So I would do this.
I think
They're just going to cast Thalia,
I think
right?
Thalia is coming into play this turn.
We know his hand, right? 2 Cryptic, Raft, Terminus, Snap. 6 cards, right?
Yes.
That is correct.
As the
Eduardo.
Sin Collector was cast, they are aware of the contents of Rizzi's hand. Basically a bunch of uncastable spells because Gadok Teague is preventing all of them from being cast. But that's a Path to Exile.
Ooh,
Big
that's
draw.
a game changer here. That is going to unlock Mattia Rizzi's hand. He could. The thing that they think they're forcing Rizzi to decide on is if he wants a Snapcaster Mage for the removal spell on the Sin Collector of all things, probably
Right.
the weakest creature on the battlefield at this point.
They could also hold it. And one thing to keep in mind is, there's also that Field of Ruin. So, Rizzi could look to Field of Ruin that Horizon Canopy.
Good point. But he's going to respond. This is Thalia on the stack, Path to Exile targeting Gaddock Teague, and that's going to resolve.
Right.
The
So now,
interesting part about the Field of Ruin at this point as well, Paul, is he out of basics now?
yeah, there are only 2 basics in the humans deck. So now it will basically be a way to, destroy Hao Shan Huang's land, but Rizzi will get his own land. So just a better wasteland.
It's still in response.
Okay. Target Patok side?
But instead what he's going to do is he's going to use Snapcaster Mage to target his Path to Exile, and it looks like Mattia's the one who wants the lands. He's going to target his Snapcaster Mage with the Path.
Using the path as a rampant growth effect, if you will.
Not often you see that against the humans deck,
Right.
but if he can deploy that Terminus... Yeah, that's right, How Sean. He's like, uh-oh, Terminus. Because he's going to have 5 mana sources now.
Right, but keep in mind, this Thalia is still on the stack.
That's right.
So if the Thalia resolves, I mean, Terminus is still going to cost 7 mana.
Now, the 5th mana also, though, gives Rizzi the ability to start playing cryptic commands even with Athalia on the battlefield.
Right.
And that's a critical juncture for him because now he can buy himself multiple turns of taking no damage and drawing multiple cards per turn. And let's not forget, he's at 18.
Interesting.
Decided to kill the Sin Collector rather than the Bugler there. 2 damage either way, but...
Right, but the
Bugler
he
has-
traded with the Bugler. He could have drawn something like a Snapcaster Mage, which would have actually traded with the Sin Collector.
Right.
2 cryptic Wrath Terminus.
There's land number 6, but as we mentioned before, he actually cannot deploy Terminus at this point.
Oh, and
There's another
Bugler.
Bugler on end step with Mattia Rizzi at 16, but with the double cryptic. Is Haoshan just forced to just jam here? Like, he's adding a lot to his board, and the Terminus could be a major issue
Right.
with one more land from Rizzi.
Yeah, I think at this point he has just about enough pressure on the board to attack. Oh, but keep in mind, Matteo Rizzi has a Celestial Colonnade.
He does
on-
indeed.
the
No
battlefield.
viable attacks for Haoshan at this point.
Right.
Boy, this one's starting to look like it's shaping up in Mattia Rizzi's favor.
Yeah, are they really considering throwing away a creature to deal 4 points of damage? Alternatively, what they could do is maybe wait one more turn, put a little more pressure onto the battlefield before choosing to kind of throw away their creatures. They could also wait to draw something like a Thalia's Lieutenant to pump their squad before getting in the attack. They have a Selfless Spirit in hand, which is actually very, very good against Wrath of God and Supreme Verdict. Not so much against Terminus.
Mattia Rizzi is sitting back, arms crossed, little smile on his face. I think he thinks he's in good position here,
Yeah.
and I think I agree with him.
Right. I mean, the humans deck just can't really afford to play actual spells in their deck. So it's not like they're going to be holding Path to Exile up here. Potentially, maybe there's like a Dismember or something that Hao could have brought in as a way to deal with the Celestial Colonnade.
Would be annoying, but even with that in mind,
Right.
Rizzi wouldn't die.
Oh, look at this. All right. Oh, and no activation.
Interesting. Very quickly from Rizzi, by the way. He knew he was not going to be either activating or using Cryptic Command. He's like, sure, go to combat. Sure, take the damage.
All right. Wonder
So what's the game plan
what the
here?
play here is. So the reason why Hao Shan Huang does not want to put more permanents onto the battlefield is because
Bounce throw?
they already used a Sin Collector earlier, and they know that Rizzi has access to a Terminus. So all Rizzi needs to do is play land number 7, and then he can just sweep the board.
So Rizzi decided that prioritizing the Ether Vial and getting that off the board and reset was more important. So that's what he did on end step there with his Cryptic Command. Bounce that draw card.
And I think
With the land here, he can Terminus.
and it looks like he does have the land here. So he's kind of asking, what do I want to do? Do I want to cast a Terminus this turn? Or do I want to use Field of Ruin to prevent Hao from casting his spells? Because the Field of Ruins, Hao is out of basic lands in his deck. all he is basically only just forced to shuffle his deck, and he cannot get any more lands here. And keep in mind, Rizzi has another Field of Ruin in play as well.
Yeah, he may just do this again on the Horizon Canopy. By the way, we're going to be taking a live look in at our other table. We've had to start them given time constraints. We're going to try to watch both at the same time because this round could end at any point. And there was a Wrath of God in hand. And there we go. We've got Mattia Rizzi's match on the bottom part, and then the decider between Yam Wing Chun and Shahar Shenhar on the top part of your screen. Remember, if either Mattia Rizzi or Shahar Shenhar win, then the round's over.
Right. That's a carnage timer on the battlefield on Yam Wing Chun's side.
Definitely. He's also resolving an Anticipate.
Imagine that thing's going to be turning itself sideways fairly soon.
Yeah, if Yam does win his match against Shahar, then it all comes down to this one, which would mean that Haoshan needs to come back from here, which doesn't look particularly likely, and then win the last game as well.
Right.
So things still looking quite good for Mattia Rizzi and company, but you never know.
Yeah, so currently this is probably not enough pressure on the battlefield for Rizzi to pull the trigger on the Terminus. So, you know, currently what he can do is still just keep up that Celestial Colonnade.
How many cards? 3, 4?
I have 4 cards.
And with that Noble Hierarch, even with the Exalted trigger, the Thalia can only attack in for 3. So, again, the Colonnade is just going to be holding everything at bay. And if anything too wild happens, Mattia Rizzi is still leaning on a Cryptic Command that he has in hand.
The best is when you can activate Colonnade and still cast Cryptic. That's the best. That's the
Or
Paul
when you can
Cheon
cast
zone right
when you
there.
can activate Colonnade attack and then have mana to block.
Yeah, jeez, you've done this before.
Oh yeah, I've played my fair share of that Celestial Colonnade.
Oh yeah.
Interestingly enough, it's possible that that Cryptic Command on that Ether Vial has actually helped Haoshan Huang because his hand is full of 2 mana cards. And if you can get that Ether Vial up to 2, now he has a bunch of 2 mana threats that are uncounterable. Oh, look at Yam Wing Chun's match. That's 2 Carnage Tyrants on the battlefield. I really don't think Shahar Shenhar has anything in his deck to deal with those threats. Double the carnage. I mean, so, you know, Rizzi does have a Colonnade, and he has a few sweepers, and he has that Cryptic Command, but, you know, he still needs to find one of his Planeswalkers to really kind of run away with the game,
Yeah,
right?
it does
Because he's
feel
still
like
kind of
that.
1-for-1-ing.
And Haoshan's mana problems early meant that he's got a lot of spells in his hand. He still has 4 cards in hand here.
Yeah, he has a Vial that he can put on 2, a lot of creatures, and he's got 2 Horizon Canopies, which he can use to look for more humans.
He also, you know, resolved 2 Militia Buglers, which both netted him cards
Right.
earlier.
And this is exactly the type of matchup where you want the Militia Bugler. It's just a grinded out matchup where, you know, Mattia Rizzi had to use Path to Exiles on just a bunch of random different creatures, and Bugler just keeps refueling your hand.
Okay, looks like Yam Wing Chun just won his match on the upper table there.
So it comes down to this.
It does. Mattia Rizzi can lock things up with a victory in this game. If he does not win this game, we will get a Game 3 decider. And as we mentioned before, yeah, the team on the right swept all the Game 1s, but it doesn't always end up so simple. Back-to-back wins for Yam means that it's all about modern here.
Carnage Tyrant
round
cannot
12.
be stopped.
No. Haoshan said, I'd like to go to combat. And Mattia said, sure.
He's like, all right.
It's your funeral, buddy. And Haoshan said, go.
This looks like a potential bounce of the Ether Vial again.
Bounce the vial and draw a card.
That's exactly what it is, Paul.
Right. So now, Haoshan Huang is aware that Rizzi has Terminus in hand. He might want to put in Kitesail Freebooter in response to the cryptic command to try to nab that Terminus and see what Rizzi is working with.
That's exactly what he's doing. Not a lot to work with here for Mattia Rizzi.
Well, actually, he's got a Snapcaster Mage. Keep in mind, he did cast a Wrath of God. So he does have a Wrath of God in his graveyard.
Yeah, but Paul, he'd lose his Snapcaster Mage then.
But then he gets the Terminus back.
He does indeed.
Yeah.
All right, so that looks like the clear line of play now for Rizzi. Critical mass on the other side of the table means it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. There's enough on the board where Rizzi really doesn't have too much of a choice here. He's going to use the Snapcaster Mage and get that Wrath of God. But it's not even clear, like, if Rizzi is that far ahead here. Haoshan
He
Huang,
really
again,
does need that Planeswalker.
Right. I mean, maybe he sideboarded some number of them out because they're not really great if your opponent is pressuring your life total.
Also, the Ancestral Vision that he had taken away earlier by the Sin Collector would have been coming off of suspend like last turn and probably would have propelled him to the victory quite easily.
Right.
So there we go. Snapcaster Mage on Wrath of God sweeps the board. Mattia Rizzi with 10 lands passes the turn back, and Haoshan's going to cash in the last of those Horizon Canopies.
So we are getting close to that point where Rizzi might start looking to get in with that Celestial Colonnade. He's got a ton of lands on the battlefield. He actually, let's take a look. He's got 5 lands to activate the Colonnade, and if he draws one more land, he can live the dream.
Oh, yeah.
Little offense and defense.
So beautiful. There's a Militia Bugler.
Another Bugler.
That's right. Card has looked very powerful here. Adding to the board, and look at this, a Meddling Mage.
Yeah, and that's really big
Knows he
because
has the Terminus.
Because Haoshan Huang is aware of the Terminus in Rizzi's hand.
But he can't deploy it this turn because he chose to play Aether Vial instead.
I think it's time to attack. He drew a land. He has enough mana to activate, attack, and activate for blockers.
He certainly thinks the same thing you do. Down to 14 for you, Haoshan. Go.
All right, it's a race.
Generally speaking, I would favor Haoshan in these race situations, but this one could be close.
Yeah, but you know he still needs to find a way to attack through the Colonnade. For example, he is unable to attack with the Bugler this turn because Rizzi has enough mana to block the Colonnade with the Colonnade this turn.
Also, Rizzi can really turn on the afterburners and attack with 2 Colonnades at some point.
Right, right. If he plays another land, he can attack with both Colonnades next turn. It is a little bit risky because then he can't block, and Hao might be able to have enough pressure on the board to be able to attack for lethal if you draw something like Athalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah, it's so annoying because the Humans deck actually is explosive. It doesn't have, much haste, just the Mantis Rider, but it can actually pile on a ton of damage that you didn't think that you were going to take. They're like, end step Aether Vial something in, play a Mantis Rider, play Athalia's Lieutenant, and you're like, wow, I'm taking 12? Where did that come from?
It is interesting, though. The upside of attacking with both Colonnades means that you do put your opponent on a 2-turn clock.
There's Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yep.
Let's race.
So that'll put a counter on both of those creatures. Does Haoshan Huang have something like a Noble Hierarch in hand? If he did, he would be able to attack with the Bugler because it would have Exalted and attack for 4, but looks like he doesn't. This is close. But Rizzi does have a lot of powerful draws in his deck.
I think he just drew another land. Where are the Planeswalkers? Certainly he was supposed to have seen one by now. Maybe he boarded some out. It doesn't seem likely.
It's possible. It's possible he thought maybe he can just win with the pure card advantage provided by the Sweepers and the Ancestral Vision. And then maybe Celestial Colonnade gets it done.
That game plan has partially come to fruition here, though it does feel like he really could have used a little more punch as that Ancestral Vision was taken away from him in the early to mid part of the game, and he just hasn't had any engines as far as card advantage goes. He has been able to manage the board effectively. Gets in for 4 with the Colonnade, plays another one, and says, go.
Okay, so this is a huge turn. What is Haoshan Huang working with here? He's got a Phantasmal Image. He can vial in Phantasmal Image to copy the Thalia's Lieutenant, which then allows his Bugler to attack through the Colonnade.
Oh boy. You see the hand of Eduardo Sajgalik point from the image to the Thalia's lieutenant.
Okay, so not playing around counter magic here. Just casting the phantasmal image.
And it's going to resolve.
It's going to resolve. So now counter gets placed on all of the creatures, and the Thalia's lieutenant gets 2 counters. One from the phantasmal image and one from its own ability. And then now Hao also has a noble hierarch that he can play.
Which would be even more damage.
Right, which would then put an additional counter on the Thalia's lieutenant, meaning that the Thalia's lieutenant here can also attack if it wants to, as it would trade with the Colonnade. And don't think he wants to attack with that meddling mage. Does he have a lethal attack here? This isn't... Okay, so Rizzi does have to activate Colonnade, but by doing so, he does need to sacrifice Flooded Strand and go down to 9 life.
But he can still block, right?
He can still block, and he can actually block
Take
the
8.
meddling mage here and take
4, 5,
8
6, 7, 8.
and go to 1. But
and
then he can
Terminus?
play. Then he can play Terminus. It's possible that we're missing something here, because this is...
He has a Selfless Spirit in hand. He has a Selfless Spirit in hand, Paul.
Yeah, but that does not stop Terminus. It
That's
gives all your
right.
creatures indestructible.
It would, but it would leave the meddling mage alive.
Okay,
So
right,
that he
right.
can't cast Terminus next turn.
So Rizzi is now, there is potential that for
For
Hao
a
Shan
Wrath
Huang
of
to
God.
have a human in his hand. Right? If he vials in a 2-mana human, he just straight up dies if he doesn't block Thalia's lieutenant. So there is that fear as well. So he has to make that decision. Am I going to block the Thalia's lieutenant? Am I not going to block the Thalia's lieutenant and die to a human? Or do I have to try and block the meddling mage here because my route to victory is casting a Terminus here? I think the play is to block meddling mage.
That's what he's going to do. But Hao Shan's going to have to cash in the Selfless Spirit now to maintain that Terminus lock. Now, does this not mean, though, that Mattia can draw one of his other sweepers?
Right, he can. Hao
He
Shan
can draw Supreme Verdict?
He can even draw Jace to bounce the meddling mage. There's a lot of different cards he can draw, but I think that was an Ancestral Vision.
I don't think he found anything.
No.
He did not. And Hao Shan, wow, what a game. That went on forever. I'll tell you what, if you told me that a game went that long, blue-white versus humans, I would not assume that the humans deck won, but they in fact did. Take a deep breath, everybody at home. We're going to play one game here to see who wins this round.
I mean, that's the thing with this blue-white, with this human deck. It can actually grind. It can legitimately grind. You have the addition of the new Militia Bugler, which helps out a lot. The deck doesn't play a lot of lands. You get to play 4 copies of Horizon Canopy and cycle through your deck, and you don't really need to overextend here because the blue-white control deck, a lot of its removal is in the form of sweepers. So you just play it slow, and Rizzi really, he was able to, 1-for-1 often, right? He had some removal spells here and there, but he really needed to find those Planeswalkers or suspend one of those Ancestral Visions to actually have a way to get ahead on cards. And Rizzi will also naturally get flooded more often because he's just playing more lands in his deck.
Huh. What an interesting game that was. I'm really curious if that was perhaps Rizzi getting a little unlucky in not finding another card advantage engine. The only one he found was the 1 copy of Ancestral Vision that got taken away. So we have to give credit to the humans deck for having interaction in that way. And then kind of nothing else until that last turn, and that was way too late then.
Right.
I wonder if he still got the Planeswalkers in the deck, or if he is taking a more lean game plan like you mentioned, Paul, where he may just be leaning on the sweepers and maybe Ancestral Vision to get the job done, a more traditional control build.
Honestly speaking, I think he just didn't draw them.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I don't see a card in his sideboard that he actually drew over those potential Planeswalkers, right? We already expected him to take out those counterspells, which we never saw, right? And we did see a Celestial Purge. So, I mean, taking a look at his sideboard, he's got Baneslayer Angel, Lyra Dawnbringer, Celestial Purge, and those are all cards that we saw. I guess we also saw Vendilion Click. So perhaps he did shave on one of the some of the walkers. And it's not like he's playing like 4 Jaces and 3 Teferis, you know? He's only got a few copies of both of those.
Okay. So it is more likely that we don't see them. Okay, game number 3 incoming.
That was a really good game.
That was an awesome game.
Wow, what a hand.
Double Ether Vial. Sometimes that leads to explosive starts, and sometimes that's a little too many Ether Vials.
Oh, he had another card? Right, because he was on the draw.
He kept, and he's on the draw, and we're underway here in game number 3. Ether Vial kicks things off for Haoshan with a pair of tap lands here for Mattia Rizzi. And they're all the pressure now on this one match. They're going to have their teammates standing by because this is huge. These teams came in with 2 different records. Haoshan's team has an 8-2-1 record with a draw there. And on the other side, Wilson, Rizzi, and Shenhar are up against it. With an 8-3 record right now, they do not have a loss to give to keep their dream alive from making a top 4. So everything's on the line and in Mattia Rizzi's hand from their perspective.
And they're both trying to end the game. There's not a lot of time left. They want, they cannot afford another. They cannot. They really don't want another draw here. So both players, you know, at this point, Rizzi's playing face up here. He's like, write what you got to do. But, you know, we just want to make sure we can end this game in a timely fashion. Now, Rizzi does have that Vendilion click, meaning that if he keeps that up, it will be difficult for Haoshan Huang. I don't think he's going to be attacking in with that Kitesail Freebooter. At the same time, he won't be attacking in with that Champion of the Parish until he can at least turn it into a 4-4.
Fetch land here for Rizzi.
He could go for, because of the information, he could go for the main phase Vendilion click, try to see if Haoshan Huang has something like a Thalia's Lieutenant that he wants to get out of his hand. Might target himself if he really feels like he needs to find a sweeper. But I think he's going to target Hao.
Yep, and that's exactly what he did. He's going to see another copy of Ether Vial as well as Noble Hierarch, a Militia Bugler, and Meddling Mage.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to go for the Meddling Mage. I mean, Bugler's also interesting, but he can't actually play Bugler next turn unless he draws a land. So he's going for the Meddling Mage because Hao is aware of the contents of Rizzi's hand. Rizzi does have a second copy of Cryptic Command in his hand, the first one being underneath the Kitesail Freebooter.
Champion of the Parish, is that the draw step?
It looks like it, and if that's the case, I think this is the type of game where you want to just be really aggressive. You already know Rizzi doesn't have a sweeper, so press the advantage and try to win before Rizzi can find that sweeper. So I could see this turn being a situation where, you know, he plays out Champion of the Parish, then plays out Noble Hierarch, and then maybe even put a Phantasmal Image onto the battlefield. I don't know. But he certainly wants the 2-2 Champion of the Parish that he currently has on the battlefield to become a 4-4.
That's right. That way he can cleanly attack. Also, the Exalted Trigger will help him get big enough here to go right past the Vendilion click on the other side of the battlefield.
He could also use the Phantasmal Image to copy Kitesail Freebooter to get the other Cryptic Command out of Rizzi's hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, returning that Champion of the Parish at some point is starting to look pretty attractive for Rizzi as it's huge now.
Look at this start.
Wow, this is explosive stuff here for Haoshan.
And this is the thing with this Humans deck, right? It's got all these really disruptive creatures, but it also has the ability to just kill you on turn 4 on top of the disruption.
That's right, and this is getting pretty awkward here for Rizzi as he just has to sit here and watch as another Cryptic Command goes into hand, and all he's got left are lands.
All right, Rizzi needs a sweeper here.
Yeah, Supreme Verdict or a Wrath of God off the top of the
or
library.
A Miracle off the top.
A Miracle would also do it. Terminus, if he can draw any of his sweepers, he has 5 different copies in his deck. 3 Terminus, a Wrath, and a Supreme Verdict. And boy, he's going to need one this turn or next, or this thing's going to be over. Let's see what he can find.
Oh!
Oh, a Supreme Verdict off the top of the library for Mattia Rizzi. Don't forget to get in there.
Right?
Get in for 3.
How's like, what do you have?
Oh, such a devastating top deck. And there it is, the big sweeper from Mattia Rizzi. Turns out when you team with Shenhar, it rubs off on you.
Oh, my goodness.
Top deck from Mattia Rizzi. Passes the turn back to Haoshan with no board.
That is brutal. Now, Hao needs to try to rebuild here, doing the main phase Ether Vial on the Bugler, because if he finds a 2-mana spell, he can play it this turn.
Bugler's a great one here, and he found a Thalia.
right? Dahlia is reasonable. I mean,
he
does have 2 cryptics.
He also found he has multiple options to choose here. Thalia is one of them. I believe there's a Kite Sail Freebooter as a choice as well.
Yeah, Freebooter might actually be the better choice here, just to try, have something on the board that deals with that can prevent Rizzi from chaining multiple cryptic commands.
There it is. Kite Sail Freebooter.
That was huge.
Just under 7 minutes to go, and we've got ourselves a real game here. Whoa. Are we freebooting?
He could also choose to just play 2 Ether Vials if he wants. Nope. We're booting.
And once again, Matthias says, well, this is the only thing you can take anyway. Ooh, Wrath of God off the top of the library.
Are you kidding?
Do you just do it?
I mean,
he doesn't have to, but
he doesn't.
Is it
but
getting better?
But the thing is, if you use the Wrath here, like Huang has to rebuild again, and then your Celestial Colonnades can really just keep everything at bay. But it looks like he's going to be a little more patient here and try to get at least one more card out of Huang's board.
Really bad for Haoshan. He drew another Ether Vial.
Oh.
3 of them now. And that is the card you do not want in multiples.
All right, so this was big though. Actually, that's a Meddling Mage.
He's got a Meddling Mage and 2 Ether Vial in hand.
So he can actually use the Meddling Mage.
But he's going to name Cryptic, right?
Oh yeah, he could have named Cryptic. Oh, but he's just going with the vials here instead. I'm not going to counter the second vial with the first one as well.
The third
you want
one
to get this one?
Third one's okay too.
Yeah.
Is Matthias still concerned about the Ether Vial on 3? Yes, he's consistently made this play of returning that to hand and casting Cryptic Command to draw a card as well. And he's going to do that here. Interesting that he's in the similar spot that he was last time. And may just want to lean on that second copy of Cryptic Command rather than playing the Wrath of God straight away. He also has more incentive to do so. He's got a Path to Exile in his hand now as well, Paul.
Yeah, but keep in mind, I mean, time is running out. Rizzi does need to find a way to win quickly. So if you notice, he's shuffling very quickly because I feel like if you are Rizzi, you do realize that you are in the lead here. You have that extra sweeper, you have the path, and then you can try to end the game with Colonnade, which is why he's going with the proactive Wrath. He didn't play it last turn. He's like, I gave you the opportunity to play another creature. You didn't play it, so now I'm going to go with the Wrath, and I'm going to try to end the game with Colonnade as quickly as possible.
So for now, though, it's going to be Meddling Mage, I guess, on Cryptic Command, because that's what he has in his hand, and you know it. And now, bang, hit you for 4. This is the game plan. It's going to take 4 hits to get the job done, but he currently wins this race very easily thanks to Path to Exile.
Yeah, he's got the Path to Exile for the Meddling Mage, and then he also has, the Cryptic Command in case something else goes wrong as well.
Yeah, Path really perfect here as well, given that Haoshan does have Selfless Spirit in his hand, and that's just not going to do anything. There is Noble Hierarch with the attempt to make the clock faster, but that's just going to prompt opt into Path.
He's going for the opt first in case he hits a Terminus here. Looks like he doesn't, but he hits a Detention Sphere.
That's also pretty good considering that there's 2 Ether Vials over there. Although I don't even know if those are important at this point in the game.
Here's a question. Do you consider Detention Sphere on those Ether Vials?
I was just
on 2.
I kind of assumed it because, hey, there's 2 cards, but no. He's only drawing a card a turn, right?
Right. You could just save those Detention Spheres for the actual threat that Huang plays.
At any rate,
now there's 3, though.
Now there's 3. That is tough to say no to. But in the meantime, I think that it's highly in Rizzi's favor here to keep attacking in the air rather than worrying too much about dealing with the board. Right now, it's 1 card in hand and a Noble Hierarch. You're at 10. I think you just want to hit him for 4.
Huang is at a pretty, actually, nice life total here. He's at 9, meaning that he needs to take 3 hits from the Colonnade to survive. He has 3 turns to take from the Colonnade. But now he is going for the Detention Spear on the triple Ether Vial. No more vials for Huang.
This probably limits him to just 1 card per turn, though that's also all he's drawing.
But Selfless Spirit with the Exalted Trigger, attacks for 3. I think Rizzi's going to think twice in response. He can hit again. A Terminus.
I love that he's playing Think Twice, by the way. It was opt. He may cast it, though it does limit his options as far as finding Terminus on his opponent's turn.
Right.
Which does actually look quite good.
Yeah. He could hold on to it, At the same time, he might want to just use his mana every turn to try to dig and find one of those planeswalkers that he has in his deck.
Thalia's Lieutenant, but of
That
course the Selfless
you wanna just
Spirit is
dig.
the one that, yeah, I agree, is the one not human in the deck.
That's a Condemn.
Condemn could have used that. Get a little punish there, but he's
Can he
still looking to
Colonnade
be in
now?
good shape. And
Because
just
he has
leave
the
up
Condemn?
Condemn? Yeah, absolutely.
Nope.
Oh,
I think he's going to go for Condemn Snapcaster Path.
just completely clear the board.
Right. Then he can start attacking with the calling, because he has mana to do that. He has mana to Condemn or Path, and on top of that, also he has Cryptic Command available as an option.
I
here.
see. Yeah, that does make sense. Also, having a Snapcaster on the battlefield does reduce the turn by a clock anyway.
And that is a Mantis Rider.
Uh-oh. These have been
All right.
nice draws here
This
from
is this is
Haushan.
going to be the triple removal turn,
So it's
or double removal. He's going to be able to Condemn and Path to Exile.
Haushan attacks with everything, and this is
Oh wow! And
here's the
Snapcaster-
fireworks.
Snapcaster will block Thalia's Lieutenant here as well.
Yeah. This should be the winning sequence for Mattia Rizzi.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he wants to block with Colonnade and then just cast the
Condemn on
it
the
looks
Mantis
like.
Rider?
Yeah.
Okay, that also works. He's only taking 3 damage here. He's going to 4, and he gets to basically eat a creature for free in this exchange.
I think that the players have also kind of accepted that we're probably going to go to turns here, but that's a game that Mattia Rizzi can win anyway.
Right. And the Condemn was actually nice because how is that 12? That's still a 3-turn clock.
Oh, yes.
From the
does
Celestial
work out.
Colonnade.
Yep. Another Snapcaster off the top means lots of value here for Rizzi. He's just going to pass the turn back again. I think he's just playing until turns hits.
Right. I think we might see like an aggressive Snapcaster here. We could see Snapcaster Path.
There's Thalia.
Yep.
And
Yeah, Snapcaster Path is almost certainly happening here. Oh, no, he still has Colonnade here.
Yep.
Huang can choose to attack with Thalia's Lieutenant for the Colonnade, but it looks like he's going to wait to draw 1 more human to be able to have an Exalted trigger and attack for 5. All right, looks like it's going to go to turns here.
time has just been called. There's Snapcaster Mage from Mattia Rizzi.
The Path to Exile.
Yeah, he's just going to go for Path.
I think he's gonna target Thalia so that he could also flashback Think Twice this turn.
No more basics left in the deck for Haushan. And there's Think Twice somewhere in there. There it is.
Even just play
Snap Opt, he's thinking, look, that gets me 1 deeper.
Right. Although he already cast Snap Path.
He has a second Snapcaster.
Oh, he
I believe.
does? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That is also an aggressive play,
Hey, now's the time.
right?
Put your cards on the table.
Keep in mind, Rizzi also has Cryptic Command in hand, which you can use aggressively, right?
That's right.
If you go Snapcaster Mage Opt, attack with Colonnade, end of turn, tap down your team, attack with 2 Snapcasters plus Colonnade, that is a lethal attack.
Yeah, anybody
And-
who's ever tried to race Cryptic Command knows that does not work out
Right,
well.
and Haushan Huang does not have those Ether Vials in play anymore, so he can't flash in a creature either. He has to just play whatever humans that he draws.
Okay, it is just going to be Think Twice. Yeah, you can choose not to. They were asking about the Path to Exile. A little different than the Field of Ruin, which is what he just drew for the turn. There it is. Down to 8. Mattia Rizzi in turn probably 0.
Might be turn 1.
It might have been. I believe this is turn 1, though.
Okay.
Whew, hello.
Oh, that's big.
Collector.
That's going to get that Cryptic Command that's in Rizzi's hand.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow, Haushan has really peeled nicely here.
Yep.
here's point Vendil.
Cast Vendilion Click.
Target myself.
And he's just
Okay.
going to say, well, I'm going to reduce your chances of actually hitting.
Hey, he drew
Well,
a spell anyways.
He did, but it wasn't one that was going to resolve by the natural finish of this game. So just ends up getting a Vendilion Click on the battlefield now.
So what does he want to attack with? Just the Thalia's Lieutenant. That's going to get in for 5, meaning that Rizzi would need to double block to actually kill it. But Rizzi might also just chump block here with the Snapcaster Mage and try to win in the air.
Yeah, he still has a 2-turn clock regardless, even with a Colonnade and a Vendilion Click. So he may just want to trade off his 2 creatures on the ground.
How is Rizzi?
Especially given that the Thalia's Lieutenant can get bigger.
If he went with the more aggressive line of playing Snapcaster Mage with the opt, he would have been in a position to win this turn. Because even with even with Huang playing with Sim Collector, with the trigger on the stack, he could have been able to tap down Huang's team and attack with both Snapcasters and the Celestial Colonnade.
Land and play a land. We can even destroy the land and say.
So they're going to first use Field of Ruin to take down Cavern of Souls. He does need to shuffle, but the 2 basic lands you see on the battlefield for Haoshan are the only 2 in his library. Look at Shenhar. He's like, oh, this is such a sweat. We're in turn 3.
5. Does he have a snap? Oh, so yes, Snapcast. Is there a cryptic command in Rizzi's graveyard?
There has to be.
Right. Well, that would do it because this is turn 4. So Rizzi gets 1 more attack. And given that he has Snapcaster Mage in hand, doesn't look like there's a whole lot Huang can do.
No.
Yeah, there is a cryptic in the yard.
So he can just tap down all those cards. Snapcaster, target cryptic command. He draws his card for the turn, but cryptic command does have the ability to be cast from the graveyard now.
Tap their team, draw a card.
Tap and draw. And Mattia Rizzi is on turn 5 of 5. He also drew another cryptic just in case.
Insurance.
No, we don't need it. Just attack combat.
Yeah. They're just like, how
And
can we
any
lose?
2 creatures will get the job done, and that's going to do it.
Wow, turn
Mattia
5.
Rizzi wins for his team, MTGO Traders. And wow, they won all their first game ones, but then things got a little more intense as it went down the line. And thought this one might be quick. Ended up taking the literal maximal amount of time possible. We went to turn 5 of turns, but they do end up finishing things off and ending the round. That keeps them in the hunt. They are now 9-3. Their opponents have fallen to 8-3-1, probably putting them out of contention, though they're going to continue to fight through the end of the day. What an exciting round. We've got 2 more to bring you before we end things here and move to the Silver Showcase. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the news desk. Maria, Rich, and Simon. Let's take a look at our leaderboard as we get ready for the penultimate round here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. And I wanted to ask you something too, Simon, as we take a look at the leaderboard. Swiss pairings at this tournament. This is a smaller tournament, and at some point, pairings start to get a little unpredictable, shall we say?
Gnarly.
Exactly, Maria.
Yeah, a little wonky.
So the thing is, the Swiss system is like a pyramid that you ascend with every round, and then at some point the pyramid is just done with, but there are still more rounds to go, and then that's when we cannot pair players with the same records against each other anymore. For example, the team of Greg Orange with a 10-1-1 record will get paired down, and then some of these teams will have already played against each other, and it becomes really unpredictable what will happen during these final 2 rounds.
And what about draws? I mean, that can kind of throw another wrench in the works, right?
Yeah, I mean, this marathon match was almost a draw, and it would have actually not been good for either of these teams, especially I think the Sajgalik team didn't want to pick up another draw. But it's at this point, I can't even tell what will be the record to make the top 4, but these players with an 8-3-1 record are definitely still in it.
Yeah, so for simplicity's sake, let's assume that 10-4 won't make it in. That is not certain, but let's assume that for a moment. So at that point, the 8-3-1, so if you are Tom Martell, Brandon Ayres, John Rolfe, or you're Eduardo Sajgalik, Huang Haoshan, Yan Wing Chun, you know that you have to win twice. That's the first thing you have to do. It's actually a very straightforward path for them because they've been trying to beat people every round. They're going to carry on doing that. If they do it twice, they're at 10-3-1, and then they see where that falls. So that's straightforward enough. Once you hit the 9 and 3s, which begin with Gregoire Nyrink and Van der Pelt, the Belgians, in 11th place, all the way up to Sukenik, Nagro and Cochrane in 4th place, well, they have a 2-step process, actually arguably 3. Step 1, win this round. 9 and 3, get to 10 and 3. At 10 and 3, look at the standings and the pairings, see whether you can shake hands with someone because you think 10-3-1 is enough, or decide that you don't think it's enough, and then play and win again, get to 11 and 3, that's going to get you in.
Yeah, look at the number of 9 and 3s. If you divide that by 2, it's still too many for all of them to accept a draw. So that already gives us some idea, because there are only 4 slots, and these top 3 teams, they will definitely occupy some of them.
For sure. So those are your 9 and 3s. Then you're into the rarefied atmosphere of Carvalho, Saporito, Ramal, Utter, Leighton, Stark, and User. They're at 10 and 2. So the first thing you want to do is win this round. Now it's possible, depending, you might lose this round and still be able to shake hands with someone at 10-3-1 if you think your tie breaks are great. By the way, Utter, Leighton, Stark and User led the tournament, were the last undefeated team. That means they're going to have great tie breaks. They were 8-0 at the start of this thing. So their first step is win round 1, as it were, round 13 of this 2-round tournament, and then look at the tie breaks once again. But if they win and go to 11 and 2, that takes care of business. Now, Wu, Hull and Orange, and this is the good news, Simon. If you are team Wu, Hull and Orange, you know that if you win this round and go to 11-1-1, no matter what happens in the last round, you are one of the top 4 competitors for $1 Million Magic on Sunday, which is just phenomenal if they can do it.
The top 4 will also play for play-draw right. And in teams, that's 3 times as important as an individual match.
So just explain what you mean by that, the play-draw right.
The first team after Swiss is going to be the one that gets to play first, or choose whether they want to play first. The answer is yes, in all 3 formats. And that's an advantage in Standard, an advantage in Modern, and an advantage in Legacy.
Yeah, I saw Greg Orange's team out on the floor last round when they were playing, and it was just an enormous smile and a sigh of relief on their faces after they got that win. So they're looking forward to another one here.
Yeah, now, Wilson, Rizzi and Shenhar, they're back at 9 and 3. They have to keep winning. They're playing the leaders, Wu, Hull and Orange. If they win, they're in. $150,000 to the winner tomorrow. But first, you have to get there, and there's only 4 seats at the dance. Let's see if we can fill one of them at least here in the best hour of Magic at any Pro Tour. It's the penultimate round of Swiss. It's round 13 of Pro Tour M25.